All right, everyone. So after the Chiefs' big win over the Lions, Patrick Mahomes is now someone who is certainly among the MVP favorites. Now, before the year, I think he was either third or fourth, and then he has moved around since. But Vegas has kept him. They did not view when the Chiefs went down. Had a rough start. They did not view him as someone who could not win the MVP award. And we did a video last what was it last week, one of the days, talking about our potential MVP candidates and some of the big ones, and we talked about Josh Allen and Mahomes and if I thought there was value with them. But after last night, there's no question that he is someone who could win the MVP. He's doing something that we haven't seen in the past few years from him, which means he's putting up the stats. The past few years they've won because he can make so many amazing plays, right? But that offense has really not been their strong suit. It's really struggled, and even as they were winning championships, right? So this year he has the stats. The problem here, and this is why we told you about Baker Mayfield, right? Baker's the bet we placed. Um, and the reason I placed it was because I just think right now, when we look at Mahomes, I understand why Allen and Mahomes are the two favorites. But to me, problem with Mahomes is that his team has three losses, which means you really need a perfect season from here on out for Mahomes to get that MVP award. Whereas when I look at Baker and I saw what are the other teams in the NFC that are really giving him issues, right? In terms of them winning the NFC, what were the other teams that would give the Bucks issues? Well, we had the Lions, we had the 49ers potentially, right? I mean, the problem is just like with the Bucks, the 49ers are dealing with a lot of injuries. But the key is that they have Baker Mayfield and the 49ers just don't, right? The 49ers lost their quarterback. Baker is making sure that this team continues to shine. So I view it as right now, Baker is going to be graded on a curve. And this is the frustrating part, I think, if we're talking about who's going to win the MVP. If you're a Mahomes better and you're someone who's saying, I think it's going to be Mahomes, what you have to kind of deal with now is that, first of all, Baker is going to get the benefit of the doubt when it comes down to voting. If they have similar stats, if they have a similar record, you would think that Baker might get the edge, right? Just because of the injuries he has dealt with. The other part of this is that, for the Chiefs, I understand, okay, that we've seen them now get a big win over the Lions. But when we look at the season as a whole, right, I think what people are kind of misjudging is I understand they're getting Rasheed Rice back. I understand the offense is looking phenomenal. But to this point, we have not seen your normal Chiefs team. Okay, we're only 1 week removed from a loss to the Jaguars that everybody kind of admitted was out of character for the Chiefs. The way that went down, the way that loss happened. And I understand that maybe Rasheed Rice coming back would have fixed that. And I'm not saying that the Chiefs aren't great. What I'm talking about here is if we're judging out can Mahomes win the MVP, because this team already has three losses, that means that down the stretch, we kind of need them to play perfect. And we have games against the Bills, two against the Broncos, another one against the Chargers, one against the Colts, one against the Cowboys. I don't remember if I said Bills, but one against the Bills. You have one against the Commanders. You look at the Raiders. Look, the Raiders have played this team tough, and they're a team that really doesn't have much to lose at this point. So is that going to be a down game? And that's the scary part of this is right now you have the Chiefs who are at a peak, right? They started so horribly. What was it? 1-2, right? And then they found themselves at 2-2. Then they lose the Jags 2-3. They certainly are not in a phenomenal situation. They did just get a win over the team that was viewed as the best in the league. But to this point, right, we still haven't seen that performance from the Chiefs that we go, that's the old Chiefs, right? That's the team. Even last night, I really felt like you have that Amon Ra catch, right? That he ends up dropping. If he makes that play, it might be a closer game. I'm not saying the Chiefs lose, but I just don't know if when you already kind of have it caked in that you have three losses, if this team's going to be able to run the table and to get us to that MVP award. When you have someone like Baker who has now two losses that he could take versus what the Chiefs, and I understand the Chiefs are getting healthier and the Bucks are getting more banged up, but the way I look at it is the Bucks have two losses to give, right? And certainly next week is going to be a big game because what we're seeing is you have the Bucks and the Lions going head to head, and if the Bucks win that one, If the Bucks find a way to beat the Lions and the Lions drop another one, I'll tell you this, it's going to be basically, I would guess that Baker would move, his odds are going to move very close to where Patrick Mahomes are, right? If they're able to do that. And they have the Lions, they have the Saints. If they get those 2 wins and then a bye, look, there's a lot of tough games that they still have, and this thing could fall apart. But if Baker can get through the Lions, the Saints, the Patriots, the Bills, and the Rams, right? So that's 5 weeks. If he gets through that, down the end of this season, you have a much easier schedule, right? It's kind of your division games. You have a game against the Dolphins. And when I mean nothing's easy in the NFL, I mean easier by comparison. And if he could keep it, then right before the end of the season, he can hit his stride. He can hit his stride and have all of the kind of stats to back it up. I think there's a big potential there. But there's no question that Patrick Mahomes, with his performance last night, has put himself, I would actually argue, in the MVP driver's seat compared to Josh Allen. Because I think the problem with even the Bills is that at least with Patrick Mahomes, you can lean on, well, they got that defense, right? At least with Patrick Mahomes, that's something that we're going to be talking about. The Bills don't have that defense. A lot of it's going to rest on Josh Allen, which makes me think that there might be some spots here where they get losses, and if they do, I don't think Josh Allen is going to get the kind of graded curve that Baker Mayfield gets. And there is a game against the Chiefs, so that's going to be a big game, right? That's going to be a really big game. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.